So here's the thing. In real estate, we are so fascinated by the concept of a lead, getting a name, an email, a phone number into our email. It really excites us. But the truth of the matter is most online leads and most agents should not be actually trying to produce online leads. There are three types of agents that should, but that being said, for most agents, this is a complete and utter waste of time and money. If we haven't met, my name is Michael Montgomery and I'm the founder of Rev Real Estate School. So what we're doing here when it comes to online leads, when we think about this, if we take a step back and consider this, most people who are registering on a website already have an agent. Now, how do we know this? That's because the conversion rate of these is extremely low, less than 1%. So 99% of these people who are registering on a website are either not interested in real estate or not actually going to transact, or two, already have an agent. But this concept of getting the name and email is such a compelling and alluring concept for us as agents. We really want to see that in our email so that we can then feel like, hey, we have an opportunity in front of us. But there are so many better ways, and we are going to explore those today as well. Because the reality of real estate is, yes, we do need to generate leads, but the concept of lead generation, it really shouldn't be that. Instead, we should really be thinking about building our database and getting more relationships. Now, you have heard this before. I totally understand. And I know what you're probably thinking is, well, I don't have a huge network. I don't have a big SOI. So how am I supposed to go about and actually do that? We will discuss that. But first, let's look at the stats. The stats are that over 80% of deals that are done in any real estate market are all done by way of SOI, repeat, and referral. If you ask any top agent, what are your top lead generation strategies? They are going to say those three things as their first thing. There's almost no agents out there who say that their top lead generation strategy is generating online leads. Now, again, that's not to say you don't want to try this. We are going to talk about three agents who should, but that being said, for the majority of us, we want to stay away from this. Now, why is that? That is because of the time, the effort. Now, that's not to say that you shouldn't actually try this. There are three types of agents who should, but that being said, for the majority of us, it is not worth the time, the effort, or the money to actually go out there and try and generate online leads, especially in the real estate industry. So let's talk first about time allocation. So when it comes to actually generating online leads, it's going to take a lot of our time. And not only setting up campaigns, but with that, we're also going to have to follow up with them. Because truly, if we are generating online leads and we're not following up appropriately or systematically, we are lighting money on fire. It is as simple as that. And then, of course, there is the cost behind this. So we do need to have some cash reserves in order to go about using this strategy. Because of course we have to run ads or use some service to generate leads for us. That's one part of it. But the second part of it is the systems and processes that we need in place in order to stay in touch with these people and nurture them over time. Because very few of them are going to convert in less than 6 months to a year. So if we don't have the systems in place, again, it's a complete waste of time. So there's really two things that we should be spending our time on instead. We should be spending our time on building relationships, and the second part is content creation. So let's first talk about building relationships. Now, building relationships is lead generation. And really, if we just remove this concept of lead generation and just inserted building relationships, we would have a perfect business. Because this lead generation concept, we get very fascinated again by this concept of a name and a phone number. That, in fact, is not somebody who is potentially looking to transact. Instead, we need to capture people before that stage. We need to capture them before they're even interested in real estate. We need to be on their mind as a real estate agent before they're at that stage of looking for homes. If they're at the stage of looking for homes, we've already missed the mark. Because at that stage, there's a high likelihood that they're already working with somebody. So you may ask, how do we go about doing this? Well, really, if we think about it, let's just think about some top agents in your market, potentially somebody you've dealt with. And if you've ever dealt with somebody who does a lot of business, but just doesn't seem overly competent, there's a high likelihood that this is occurring. So generally speaking, in real estate, if you have more conversations, you have more friends, and then more friends equals more sales. So oftentimes, those people that have more conversations and have more friends just have more sales. And so that doesn't necessarily mean that they're more competent than you. They're just willing to get out there and talk to more people. Because there's a direct correlation between number of people we talk to and number of sales that we do. Because we've ran the numbers on this, and even if you are a brand new rookie agent, no experience, every conversation is worth $132 to you. And if you're more experienced or very experienced, then every conversation is worth upwards of $330 to you. So when we put it in context like that, you can really start to see that having these conversations with people, and if we increase that number, we're going to increase our production. And the second component is content creation. So how do we actually get discovered out there? Well, we have to also be creating content. Now, this isn't only about discovery, it's also about people that already know us. So we go to an event, meet somebody in person, add them on Instagram, and then they start seeing our stuff. They start seeing our posts, and then we start to ingrain ourselves into their lives as the real estate professional. And that's where we want to be. That's exactly where all of the business is going to come from. And both scalable, but also repeatable in the sense that as we start to grow that, our number of transactions is going to grow proportionally to that. So if you're saying to yourself, I just don't know enough people, well, ask yourself, when you were a kid, how did you go out there and meet people? Where you're out on the playground, you started talking to kids, you started doing activities with a certain group of kids that also like the same activities that you do. So we need to hone our inner child here. We need to go out there in the community and actually get out there and start doing things that are of interest to us. Now, almost all problems in real estate can be solved by one thing. It's getting off our butts and getting out there and actually talking to people. That is truly going to solve almost all of our real estate problems, especially if that problem is production related. And the beauty of building these relationships as well as creating content is it's basically free. The reason I say basically, though, is because there is a time input, but that time input is worth it. Whereas the time input that it takes for us to set up our online lead structure and then actually start putting money into this and following up with them, this amount of time that we're going to spend on that is considerably higher than going out there and building relationships. We just seem to think that this is going to work better, but it doesn't. It really doesn't. And now here's the really interesting thing as well. When we think about real estate and we think about differentiation in real estate, how do we stand out among the crowd? This is a very common question that comes up. And this is really how we stand out among the crowd. In most businesses, they talk about this concept of a moat. And this concept of a moat in a technology product is building a sort of product so that you have some defensibility. So somebody can't just create the same product as you and go. Now, in real estate, there's a lot of different real estate agents out there. What is our actual moat? What is the actual defensible product that we have that differentiates us from somebody else and that avoids somebody else coming in and eating our lunch when it comes to taking leads or taking clients away from us? Well, what that moat is the relationships that we have. So if we're able to build more relationships and strengthen those, we are building a very, very defensible moat around us. But that then leads us to the final point here, which is who should be working on these types of leads. Well, there are three types of agents. The first agent is a team agent. So if you are building a team, you have to produce a predictable number of leads, both to keep your agents happy, but then also to understand your conversion rate on all of those so you can understand exactly how much you're putting in and how much comes out of that. So if you're running a team, you are going to have to generate leads. That's just the nature of running a team model. The second agent who can run this can be a solo agent, but you need extreme systems. And you need an ISA. So you need somebody who is going to be following up with these leads over time, because again, they're not going to convert in 6 months to a year even. At times it takes significantly more than that, 5 years plus. So you're going to need a system in place to actually scale this. Because if you're getting 50 leads a day, well, how are you going to follow up with all those people? You're not going to. And here's the thing is the majority of those people will never transact. And so if you're spending all of your time on these leads, you are wasting a considerable amount of time, not to mention money. But if you are an agent who wants to explore this concept of online lead generation, you better have your follow-up structures in place. And the third type of agent, this is any one of us that wants to test a new strategy. So just because I'm saying it doesn't necessarily mean that you shouldn't generate online leads, but you should treat it as a test. Run it as a test for 6 months, see how you like it, see what sort of results you get from it. Because after 6 months period of time, you should have some people that are out looking, and you should potentially have some conversations that are occurring. So if that's happened, then maybe you're on the right track. But at that point in time, you better be ready to put in the systems and the processes. But that being said, for the majority of us, for 90+% of agents, there is no point in trying to generate more leads. Instead, just focus on building more relationships and creating content. Thank you very much for watching. Let us know if you have any questions or comments around this, and you can reach out to us anytime at revrealestateschool.com. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next lesson.